Chapter 32. Planet Earth is under siege by dark forces, the battle between darkness and light. All that is necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. This is a quote by Edmund Burke. The idea that there is a spiritual aspect to life is ageless. Some religions have taught the beliefs friends that human bodies are mere shells that are animated by spiritual beings. In many religions, the idea of a soul has been used to imply that the spirit survives the death of the physical body. The notion then of spirituality, reincarnation, souls and heaven or the afterlife is far from new. You humans are truly the heroes, a being told me. Those who go to Earth are heroes and heroines, because you are doing something that no other spiritual beings have the courage to do. This is a quote by Daniel Brinkley, author of Saved by the Light. For many years there has always been a portrayal of good versus bad, evil or positivity versus negativity. This has been portrayed particularly well in films, books, comics and video games. A fantastic example of this polarity is shown in the Star Wars films, which also includes the beliefs of the Force, which can be used after being trained, either for good or for bad purposes, but always creates an ongoing battle against each other. Despite the immensity of the shadow, more light surrounds your world than does the darkness penetrate there. This is a quote by Patricia Corey. This is also seen in the philosophy of Karl Marx, as Marxism is apocalyptic, teaching of a final battle involving the forces of good and evil, followed by a utopia upon the earth. In his schemes, the forces of good are represented by the oppressed working classes and evil is represented by the ownership classes. This reflects the Calvinist belief that conflict upon the earth is healthy because it means that the forces of good are actively engaged in battle with the forces of evil. Poor us, poor kids who come to planet Earth to volunteer. We have such a difficult time ahead, a real fight. I am here to help my family wake up. Everyone is sleeping. This is a quote from Kathy, a 9-year-old star child. In David Icke's book entitled The Perception Deception, he writes that there is in existence a force manipulating and directing human society in a common theme in religions and cultures across the world. They are named differently, but some of them include the archons, Gnostic, Jinn, Islam, demons, Christianity, flyers, Central America, serpent gods, Far East, Central America, etc., Anunnaki, Sumer, Chitauri, Zulu. They may vary slightly but refer to the same collective forces. Religion has been used for the longest time to guide and control humanity, not on behalf of God, but in the interest of power, tyranny and the dark forces acting on our planet. This is a quote by J. Michael Thomas Hayes. It was discovered in the Dead Sea Scrolls that they had a manual for military organization and strategy. The War of the Sons of Light against the Sons of Darkness is also known as the War Rule, Rule of War, and the War Scroll. The manuscript was found among the scrolls found in Qumran Cave 1. The scrolls contain an apocalyptic prophecy of a war between the Sons of Light and the Sons of Darkness. There are 2 parts to the war, and in the end, all of darkness is to be destroyed and light will live in peace for all eternity. I believe it is also possible that, given the fact that we have all specifically chosen to be here on Earth at this particular time, that we are all here to be part of the battle to ensure the continuity of the human race and fight against the forces of evil that are trying to destroy humanity in its present form. This is a quote by author John Hamer. In the Christian New Testament, it refers to light versus darkness, and it directs Christians to know God as light, walk as children of light, and to shine as luminaries in the world. It says that God is light and in him is no darkness at all. This is the same God that said, "Out of darkness light shall shine," and said that who shined in our hearts to illuminate the knowledge of the glory of God. Daniel Paley writes that Christians are surrounded by people who love darkness rather than the light, and as Christians we have the light of life in us, but that it's still possible to be affected by those around us that are walking in darkness. The net effect of all this upheaval and disruption is a constant, ongoing battle between good and evil, here on this planet, and upon reflection, this would partly explain why the world is in constant turmoil. Without this struggle between the dark and the light factions, the yin and the yang, we would not have the opportunity to grow, learn, and thereby facilitate the evolution of our souls. This is a quote by John Hamer. In my book entitled Spirituality from the Stars, I channeled the following interesting words about the battle of darkness versus the light. You are beings of wisdom, beings of light within the forces of darkness, but this is changing, and the ongoing battle of dark versus the light has been gathering pace in your recent years. It is not completed, but it has gathered pace. The darkness is conceding that it does not hold the power over you that it once did. You are evolving on all frontiers, my friends and allies of the light force. Continue forward and onwards in peaceful and positive battle, my evolved beings fighting your causes against the darkness. You are the light, and it will prevail if continued at its current pace on its current path. Spirituality is not a blind faith about things invisible. It is an inspired use of things known and available. This is a quote by Manly P. Hall. In this same book, I also describe dark and light as follows. Dark. Since the birth of creation has existed dark matter and light matter, extremities and the polar opposites of each other, and for good reason. The reason is balance of perfection. Without one you cannot experience the other, both within your realms linked to Earth and throughout the multiverses. To experience for soul development, that experience has to be enveloped by both dark and light forces. Many of you experience these forces daily. At present linear time of 2012, there are many dark forces and entities at work amongst you and throughout your nations. These dark energies have been identified to a degree, but there are many more behind the scenes. There are many more underlying, both individually and in groups, and also on a worldwide scale. There are many groups and individuals that encompass dark energy that target others that will encompass their own dark energy to gain further control and power. They scheme and plan well. Dark energy consumes their vibrancy and spirit, but it is clever and not always easy to identify. It deliberates slowly before consuming all before it on its path. It takes an extraordinary beacon of light to repel its cancerous growth. But repelled, of course, it can be. There are souls incarnated upon your planetary realm, having brought with them the manifestation of dark energy from previous lifetimes and civilizations. Their pathway is harder to pull away from as the dark energies devour them. Their tests are to eventually leave the influences of the darker realms to find their own light. Balance is created by the existence of both light and dark, and it has always been this way. Presently your scales have been tipping almost furiously in the battle from dark to light and again back to dark before finding light again. It ebbs and flows and changes constantly. This energy, for that is what it is. Light is attracted to light and dark is eventually attracted to light. The choice is made on many levels of reality and consciousness, but is detectable within your reality of light being. It is pure, and it will triumph in its competition with dark energy as it has done so before. It is the responsibility of each human being today to choose between the forces of darkness and the force of light. We must therefore transform our attitudes and adopt a renewed respect for the superior laws of divine nature. This is a quote by Maurice Strong. In Sylvia Browne's book entitled Secret Societies, she gives us interesting information from her spirit guide, whose name is Francine. Francine says that many of the founders of these secretive groups are definitely dark entities. Such people allow their egos to override their intellect, as they try to gain power in any way that they could, thus causing a separation from God. Dark entities want to win over this planet, which will never happen because white entities, which is what most people in the world are, will never turn dark. However, many white entities do join fringe societies and cults, be it out of ignorance, the search for spirituality, or as a response to a charismatic leader. For example, most of the unfortunate people who died in Jim Jones's cult were white entities that were just looking for a messiah. Francine says that any white entity can be manipulated, but eventually snaps back on track like a rubber band. There is nobody in this world that hasn't in some way been manipulated by dark forces, because of the negative vibration of planet Earth. She goes on to say in the 1970s, that these clandestine organizations were manipulating many of the world's affairs, causing epidemics like AIDS in Africa, problems with the food supply, energy crises and wars. Joe Lewis, a former chairman of the Department of Journalism at the University of Texas in El Paso, wrote a book entitled The God Hypothesis. In his book he mentioned that Moses and the Israelites were never allowed to see Jehovah's face. He also mentions that an early Jewish sect who believed in a dualistic universe, believed that it was divided equally into the worlds of light and darkness, and to them, the physical world, including planet Earth, was created and ruled over by the Lord of Darkness. Authors such as Freemasons, Hall and Mackey and Christian Webster traced secretive knowledge back to Mesopotamia and saw the division between humans and non-humans as a metaphysical struggle between light and darkness. Some love the light, some love the darkness. It is a matter of the unique and infinitely various Creator, choosing and playing among its experiences as a child upon a picnic. Some enjoy the picnic and find the sun beautiful, the food delicious, the games refreshing, and glow with the joy of creation. Some find the night delicious, their picnic being pain, difficulty, sufferings of others, and the examination of the perversities of nature. These enjoy a different picnic. All these experiences are available. It is the free will of each entity which chooses the form of play, the form of pleasure. This is an excerpt from the book The Raw Material, The Law of One. In David Icke's book The Perception Deception he highlights information from a Swiss clairvoyant named Anton Steiger. Anton describes how he sees the dark entities that are currently running planet Earth as follows. When I see people in business or politics, who are particularly trapped by the material world, for example, I notice that they no longer have any light bodies at all. In many of these people, the point of light at the heart chakra, which is otherwise always present, is no longer visible to me. Instead I see something like a layer of shiny tar around them in which a monstrous being in the shape of a lizard can be distinguished. When such people speak on television, for example, I see a crocodile shape manifesting itself around the person like in a concave mirror. I don't see the light of their throat and forehead chakra. Preston James, Ph.D., believes that the planet is under siege by the dark forces, and I find it difficult to disagree with him. He believes that the bloodlines have been parasitizing humans and farming them, and that its intergenerational agenda is that of increased degradation, illness, suffering, violent death and the destruction of that which humans consider to be sacred and good. He believes that the plans of a globalist agenda to create a new world order have been guided from an intelligent dark force. This dark force worships the black sun, or Baal or Moloch or the owl, each representing the same dark entity. Some call it Lucifer or Satan. He believes that the bloodline leaders become empowered by this dark force of evil, and they believe that it is their right to administer death to the masses in order to purify the human race. In 1994, Dolores Cannon wrote a book entitled They Walked with Jesus. In this book, the past life regressionist recounts stories about two of her clients that had met Jesus in their previous lives. One recounted about the priests in Jerusalem during the time that Jesus lived and said that the priests, "It is very distasteful to me, their behavior, their teachings, they are so closed, they are so dark, they are not of the light, they are not of the truth even, they keep people away from the immediacy of our experience with God. He's not somewhere far off that is so hard to get to, he's not angry with us. He doesn't require us to kill beautiful animals as a sacrifice." Later on during the past life regression, the same person describes Jesus talking to groups of people, and teaching them. Those people that are standing around him seem to be of a very dark and dense energy. It's almost as if he's talking to lumps of coal. They seem really dark and dense, and he has such a light. He seems to be trying to allow them to come out of their denseness, and receive some of his light. They are so dark, he has quite an undertaking. In another session with another person going through a past life regression, they said of Jesus that, "He listened and understood and accepted what came from my heart. He told me to walk in love and follow the path of light, and to struggle against fear. There should be no fear, for fear creates the darkness in man. The only truth is the love and light." In Dolores Cannon's book entitled The Convoluted Universe, Book 2, she regresses people that have had past lives upon Earth as well as upon other planets, and here are some excerpts. It's not that the divine is going to point at it and say, "Oh, that's bad." That's not it. The divine doesn't do that. The divine is beyond the good and the bad. It wasn't even that in Atlantean times. It wasn't that they were evil. It wasn't that they were vicious. But it was the beginning of the negative. I guess the Great One realized that we weren't learning enough being positive. Another person in trance says that many in Atlantis had become of the dark side. They were not always that way. The misuse brought about the galactic war. It was all interconnected. Many fell into the dark side. There were many in the light that had great foresight. They did not begin the experiments without the interference of the negative dark ones. It is like they forgot who they were. They forgot their enlightenment. They were lured by the dark side. They were tempted. It had to do with free will. And to learn, consciousness went very far into the realms of darkness to learn, to explore. The same person described the current situation on Earth and said it has been passed down and hidden for fear of those that wanted power and control have always. The dark forces have come back. Many though of the dark side have turned to the light, but there are those who still try to hold on to control and to power. Further into the book, another person highlights the complications upon Earth and says it's extremely complicated. It's unlike any other planet. I think the form of negativity on this planet makes it different. The human race is a very warrior-type race. They have a great deal of difficulty living in peace. It is a very challenging planet. This person later on describes the scenario of population control here upon Earth and says that you have certain ones that are trying to control the metaphysical forms, human bodies that are available. You have leaders that are trying to control the availability of physical forms. Of course, the diseases, the wars. A different person explains that some humans here upon the Earth actually like the darkness and says that they really got to like the negative, to hurt people, or whatever, to do things which cause other people to feel bad, or to not be able to find their light. They like the darkness, so that's their path. And that's what they keep doing until they change. Another person in trance explains about the current battle upon Earth at this time and says that what we are facing now on the physical Earth plane is a battle, but it is not a battle as others would perceive. It does not have to do with battle in the physical form. Even though battles are fought, the battles that are going on now are about the dark with the light. and the light will need to come together to be spread so that those who are controlling can be stopped. This person also says that the more aware you are of where you come from, the more difficult it is to exist on a planet that is so dense, because of the negativity that is found here, even though the negativity that is found here serves well to assist others to move forward. Interestingly, in trance, this person makes some valid remarks about governments and says that any medication that is being used is not the natural way of being, and be aware that many more medications will be tried to numb the mind and to make the physical body ill. That would be a way of eliminating many, not only the children, but the adults. Many people are ignorant of what is going on, but that is not their fault, for that is where they are being kept with what they are being told. Vaccinations are going to be used to try to stop many. It's a matter of taking a stand. If a stand is not taken, then the government will continue to do what it is doing now. There comes a time when choices have to be made, and if you remember this is a spiritual war, then what is there to fear? Further into the book, a different person describes the current battle and says this is where the people of Earth need some assistance or guidance, or just a little tweak, or a little inspiration to help them move in the right direction. Earth is struggling right now with war, peace, light, darkness. Earth is a very special planet. It is a melding of many energies from many different places. And so it is like a beautiful experiment, for lack of a better word. Now, not all entities are all good and light. Just as there is darkness on the earth, there are darker energies other places as well. Another person in Cannon's book describes the current battle also and says that there is a great test of wills battling on planet Earth at this time. There is much disease, much unrest, much civil strife, and much combat. As the light continues to grow on this planet, the forces will come into greater balance or harmony. There are a great many warriors or soldiers of light, who are battling this balance, this triumphant scale of justice. Another person later in the book makes an interesting point and says that it's decided beforehand what one wants to experience, what type of life form. The difficulty is that you're trapped in one form, and it's very difficult for the soul to feel trapped in one form. It's very restrictive. Some choose not to do it, because they don't want to give up their freedom. It's scary for some. It's the unknown. It's a lower vibration. It has things we haven't experienced. Dark energies. You know, there's a dark side. It's presented to allow us to experience something new and different. It's unique, and it allows us to come into contact with the dark sides, the dark energies, the lower vibrations. Yes, it's kind of a draw for some to experience that. In Cannon's book entitled The Convoluted Universe, Book 1, she had another client describe the following words: that force never ever works. Those on Earth must come to the realization through their own choice. The decision was made to allow the Earth to grow a little while on its own and maybe find something for itself. Things didn't change for a very long time. People grew, but grew in darkness. There was very little light in their hearts. They were very primitive and there was not much love. There was much killing, much hate, many power struggles, which continued on for many centuries, many eons. The darkness pervaded for a very long time. A different person later in Book 1 describes the current plight as follows and says that Earth is just a very small world. It's a challenge to live on Earth. Everybody needs a challenge, and Earth is one of the challenges. It always seems like we can deal with this challenge, but after we are here we're so frustrated, because the challenges are greater than we actually felt they would be. Looking down at Earth, it's such a tiny planet, but it holds so much chaos that one man can't really change it. All worlds have challenges. Some challenges are not necessarily of evil nature, like upon Earth, Dolores Cannon wrote a book entitled Between Death and Life. In this book a spirit gives the following information from heaven about planet Earth. On Earth the thing which you called evil, the darker side of things is more active than it is here, and the pull is greater. Yes, Earth is a testing ground, a battleground, a playground, and many more concepts. In 1994, Virginia Esseen and Sheldon Middle wrote a book entitled You Are Becoming a Galactic Human. This book gives channeled information about the plight upon the Earth and says that dark energy which has flowed through present creation from its beginnings, this energy is now being dissipated as was promised as part of the Great Prophecy. That prophecy said that all life in creation would pass through ages of darkness and then eventually reach light when the reunion with the higher realms became possible. Creation thus goes through many cycles of light and darkness until the final light is ready to appear. This is what is occurring at this time. You are now securing a period of light in your particular solar system. The darkness that has held you in unconsciousness for so long has been put to a great retreat. The dark energy is presently acting in a very minimal way in your solar system, although on your planet its last vestiges are still great, even now as we speak. There will be a specific date for the ascension process once enough darkness has been dissipated by the positive energy work being done by the spiritual hierarchies of this world. You are about to come out of darkness and blindness into light, into a stunning and incredible vision. This physical creation, Earth, was done to show how light could transmute darkness to produce an even higher light, which is composed of the highest love. In this physical creation, there was established one basic concept. It was the idea that a great darkness would exist, from which would eventually come a great celestial light. That is why in the creation stories from many sources, including the Christian Bible, there is darkness indicated in the very beginning, for the purpose of this creation was to prove that darkness is not as great as light. The dark force that was created was to be the supreme test for this creation. Archangel Michael established the energies that would create a being of darkness, as called for under the divine plan. That is what the so-called war in heaven refers to. This being of darkness was created by God's plan so that eventually the dark energy patterns could be transformed back to light after many physical lifetimes lived upon planet Earth. The darkness was there because the Creator had decided to make this creation one in which there would be light coming out of darkness. So both light and darkness were part of the one creation in the beginning. Out of this duality there arose both light and dark celestial beings, and these beings became a prototype for the many species created of both light and dark. When the awareness and capabilities of full consciousness are twisted inward towards the ego, it can cause a great deal of harm. This problem has been experienced by Earth humans who have practiced magic with less than a fully loving intent. This is the great difficulty. That is why there has been this great conflict between light and dark in this galaxy and in this creation. Even though both light and dark are very strong forces, the light is about to lead the darkness to its own transformation. This is the nature of the struggle going on in this galaxy. In 1995, Dolores Cannon wrote a book entitled Keepers of the Garden. During a past life regression, a person named Phil described the following about planet Earth. The human race is at a crossroads or the juncture of annihilation versus evolution. This human race could, without help, easily annihilate itself at this point in time. This, then, is the reason for the rush to help save a civilization. If your neighbor were about to commit suicide, would you not rush to help him or her? If you were at all capable, you would try everything you could, because you know that that is not the thing to do. Earth is at a point of suicide, or was headed to that point before the help was sent, and so there is a stabilization of this condition now occurring. There are not those coming to defeat the purpose. There are those coming who enhance the purpose more than others. Phil goes on to comment about the darker energies and says that evil is not an accurate term, it's simply misguided. That would be a more appropriate term. These energies are simply not evolved, they are energies that live on this planet. The energies of your planet are affected by the thoughts which you feed into it. The energy of your planet is the thoughts that you feed into it, and so those negative, destructive thought patterns which have been fed into the energy of your planet are being challenged by energies being fed into your planet of a more constructive nature. The outcome could be that the more dominant energy will be the higher form. Towards the end of the book, Canon speaks to Phil's subconscious to ask about his past lives, and it says that it was with great soul-searching that he made the decision to come to this planet in this earthly form. He knew the experience would be alien, difficult and lonely. That was why he desired to leave this earthly incarnation. The adjustment is so very difficult for these higher energies because they are basically innocent and pure. They are more accustomed to the light side and cannot understand or fathom the dark side of your world. It takes a great courage for them to leave the light and journey to this dark world for their mission. In 1993, Phyllis V. Schlemmer wrote a book entitled The Only Planet of Choice. This book includes channeled information about planet Earth and includes the following information. On this side we will now place your solar systems within your galaxies and the galaxies. If you would take a stone for each of these galaxies, if they were in perfect weight and perfect proportion to the rest of the three sides, then this would be also in balance. But if one of those stones were of a porous substance, and you placed it in oil, and it absorbed the oil, and became weighted with oil, then in turn it would upset the balance and pull the balance and the scale out of calibration and would upset the other side of the universe. Your planet is accomplishing that. The negative is the heavy oil. In actuality there is no good and there is no bad. It is only when one of them becomes sour or rotten that it contaminates the rest, be it good or bad, because of the ignorance of the peoples of planet Earth, and because their religious leaders have taught ignorance. Your negative forces, which do not truly appear as you see them, manifest in that way in order to instill fear. There are gods of light and gods of darkness. Those who attempt to strangle and to take over others are fed by the energies of what you call negative, as we are fed by love, and then they begin to strangle all. When the souls of the universe have calmness and joy and peace within their hearts, and generate this love, it overtakes even those souls that are negative and dark, and brings life and love to them. This planet is one of the lowest that a soul comes to, in order to learn a lesson. The tragedy is the density of the planet. All that is not good in a physical body is used by the negative forces. The objective is to be positive balanced, not positive imbalanced. When you rebalance the positive and the negative, or when the physical body is tired or weakened, the negative forces may attempt to use your physical being, even if balanced, to create disharmony, to upset and unbalance. Your physical body, because of its density and heaviness, has certain things that it must keep in balance. Even overexposure to your electrical equipment can bring imbalance. Desire, greed and unbalanced emotions can be used to upset the balance and they become trapped, so that they then reincarnate over and over. In other worlds of the universe they attempt to do the same, but it is only upon planet Earth, because of its density, they are able to accomplish this. The temptations of Satan to feed egos, to control individuals, is the most serious problem upon your planet. It is the one thing that will destroy. It is the craving for power and the craving for control, and the craving is so strong that when it cannot be fulfilled one way, they will find another. We know what is in their hearts, and it is Satan that tempts them to do this, for the control and the power it gives them over other beings. Satan is the unbalanced negative. They feed Satan. Look at the money. the business that falls into their pockets for controlling the masses. We are attempting to bring what is negative and what is positive into perfection and balance. What you call Satan wishes not to bring it into balance, for if by bringing it into balance a soul may become perfect and may live in freedom, Satan cannot live. It only exists and lives from souls that have desire for power, control, manipulation and greed. Much truth has been destroyed to keep the masses in control. People, organizations of government and religion do not suppress any manner of thing unless it is a threat to them, or unless it is truth. This is the others at work, since they understand the energies of all creation, and how to use it to make themselves look like God, in order to keep humankind in bondage. When its life is being threatened, it maintains a stranglehold. There is within you, which there is in all upon planet Earth, in different degrees, an amount of negativity, but if it grew out of proportion to your fear, then the others are attempting to unbalance you. It is necessary to bring into the consciousness of humankind the necessity for worldwide protest over elimination of peoples on planet Earth. The others act to attempt elimination through genocidal methods, just as they seek removal of different strains of animal and plant species upon planet Earth. You humans dedicate yourself to stopping elimination of those endangered species of animal, but you do not protest the danger of extinction of endangered species of humankind. Many things have been set into motion many thousands of years ago. We wish you to realize that there are things which were not part of the planning, and which are human things, that come about by greed and vanity and desire. We speak of the governments that control the world, that create the crisis. Your governments and your religions and society kept your masses in ignorance and keep humans tied down. Science must begin to understand that it does not hold within it the power to dictate to the rest of humankind, but it is only a portion of humankind. In its elitism, science has discarded the other echelons of humankind. Science has become the religion that manipulates and controls, and those who led science must now begin to accept their responsibility. When the souls of the universe have calmness and joy and peace within their hearts, and generate this love, it overtakes even those souls that are negative and dark, and brings life and love to them. When we look over the planet now, we see only a small glow here and there, and there are many dark areas, but we know that what you have come to Earth to do, when it is accomplished, will be a releasing of pure love in the entire universe. When your planet has brought itself into balance through service, of yourself and others, when it is then evolved to a higher vibration, then the population explosion will also diminish, for negative energies will not then be in a form where they may then overpower a normal balance of positive and negative energies. We now wish for light to come forth, for the removal of darkness, for the removal of humanity's belief that darkness must take place, for there are two alternatives. The ones of darkness have existed too long. It is time for those of light, and that is your choosing. What is of extreme importance is that humans of Earth must be made aware of the genocidal intentions of some governments of planet Earth, and what is of great importance is that you have a legitimate structure through which to make people aware, so there may not be any censorship of that information. You have upon your planet Earth a great many people whose antennae vibrate with negativity. When that happens, it is stronger than when they vibrate with positivity. But there are others who work diligently, knowing that this universe, and particularly this globe, were ordained to fulfill what was created for humankind's purpose, so through their source of energy, they can negate the negative, to take the pressure off the globe. Each of you has the ability to change the necessary arenas to bring planet Earth out of darkness into its rightful place. In 2011, Dolores Cannon wrote a book entitled The Three Waves of Volunteers and the New Earth, Her hypnosis work discovered that 3 waves of volunteers were incarnating into physical human lives upon Earth in order to help in the battle of the light against the darkness. She discovered that many light beings had no reason to come to the Earth's density and negativity, but they had volunteered to help mankind and the Earth at this time. One person under hypnosis said that it so ends here with fear. Our job is to dissipate the fear. Sometimes I feel, what is the point, there's no good. Another person under hypnosis says that dark and light are part of the tapestry that builds the picture. Both must be learned to be used wisely, for positive can be misused as well. We are not here to save the human race. We are here to see where this can go. There is much confidence that it will go in the right direction for ones such as ourselves here. For we are nudging the experiment from the inside instead of how we used to from the outside. There are still many humans listening to misdirection. Cannon herself relates from many hypnosis sessions that meetings took place on the spirit side and other locations where spirits were told that the Earth was in trouble and needed help from the outside. After asking for volunteers, many took up the challenge. She says that when the new, gentle, advanced souls arrived here, they realized why Earth is called the most challenging planet in the universe. Further into the book, another subject described the following about Earth and says that we had to come down here and spread the light around. Things are bad now, and we have to do what we can to make a difference now. We have to spread the love as quick as we can. We have to try and get people to see that they have to love. Love is all they have to do. A different subject under hypnosis said the following, that there are beings that we consider not very spiritually evolved. That does not mean that they are negative. We have no negativity within the universe. There is no positive and no negative. There is only beauty of the one. What we have are beings who have not evolved spiritually as we would wish, but we would not call them negative. Some beings here think in terms of good or evil, and that's not really the way to look at it. It should be looked at in terms of spiritual advancement. Somebody else under hypnosis later in the book described the situation regarding the negativity here in the following way and said that they feel they may be able to slow down the process and maintain a low vibration by keeping fear on the surface. Fear has always been in people because that's how most, if not all, the societies of this world have functioned for many years. Fear is the way they have maintained power, and almost everybody in this world is in fear. There are different levels of fear, but these changes and the technology that has allowed everybody to communicate freely have caused a great deal of concern for those in power, because now the fear is vanishing. Those in power don't want this process to occur, and they prefer to keep a level of fear under the water, if you will, and like a desperate child, they try every tactic they can think of at this time to not let that fear dissipate, because that is what is happening. The diseases are extremely blown out of proportion, and they are not epidemics as they are portrayed to be. The media and the movies are showing you in their desperation as they insist in presenting to the masses information that is completely negative and fear-based. Subject matter such as murder, death and betrayal, attacks and such that keep the consciousness focused on these matters, as opposed to portraying in the media images of hope and inspiration. The structure of government is breaking, and will break even more to a point of chaos. Dolores Cannon writes in The Convoluted Universe, Book 3, that there is no good, there is no bad and there is no evil and there is no devil and there is no hell. There are only lessons to be learned and there is only energy which is either positive or negative. What we perceive as evil is only humans using energy in a negative way. In Book 3 she regresses a person, and that person's subconscious once again describes the negativity that is here upon the earth. As a human she had become weighed down with much of the negativity that exists on this planet, and she had taken it on board herself. What was affecting her mind was the normal human negativity, the normal negativity of Earth. A different person later in Book 3 describes a similar scenario and says that it's extremely different here. There is much to learn and experience. It's extremely complicated. It's unlike any other planet. I think the form of negativity on this planet makes it different. I think the main thing I try to do here is to maintain a balance of being very positive, very loving. Another person describes the current ongoing battle and says, I don't think that I've ever been to Earth before. I think there's a big plan. I think everyone has been asked to help. It's because there's been much darkness here, and much aloneness in this part of the universe, and it's time for the light to come. I felt that if I went, I could help with the plan to tip the balance, because the evolution of Earth was being slowed down too much by an imbalance of darkness there, and just by being there, I would be helping balance the light so the evolution could then progress in the correct way, and in the appropriate way. It was hard to imagine how difficult it was actually going to be. This person goes on to say that there were many problems in this part of the galaxy where Earth is situated, with darkness. It's out of balance, and the Great Council came together, and it was time to start infiltrating the system, and by incarnating on the planet, beings of light had the opportunity to give their light to a planet that was overrun by darkness. It's very hard to leave somewhere that's so peaceful to come to such a very dense, slow planet with so much pain. It is working. The plan is working. The light for the first time is now greater than the darkness, and there is a chance that the human race will evolve past the point where it was going to destroy itself. It was headed in that direction, and that's why we were asked to come. A different person under hypnosis says the following about being on planet Earth. On Earth, it's because it's so negative, so tired, so heavy. On Earth you don't know who you are. You lose your connection when you come to Earth. You don't see your light body when you come to Earth. You don't know that you are a light body. Boy, it's tough to find out too. Wow, on Earth it's hard, and everybody's so lost. I can't believe that you get upon this planet and you lose all your memories of who you are. Another person under hypnosis describes the plans of those in power here on Earth and says that this is the beginning, as those in power are not near done with their strategies. They will cause many more events, and there will be other events, natural causes, so the chaos is much larger than we envision in isolated cases. Somebody else later on described a familiar story and says it has become so bad here on the planet that there is great distress over what humanity is going through, and what the Earth herself has gone through. We work and the energies, some are so heavy and so negative, it takes much energy and much time. The energy work offsets the chaos, the vibrations that are so erratic, working to calm and hold things together, one person at a time. It's their choice to help or not to help, be a light, be a healing force, train each person that is willing, hopefully train more of the light overshadow, brighten the darkness, calm the negative energies. Another person in trance said the following about Earth at this time and said that there is much distress. The atmosphere is very polluted. There is much pain. The atmosphere is screaming. The souls are screaming for help. Many are coming from different worlds. The atmosphere must be healed. The cries must be heard. The planet is weeping. She is in pain. There is much to be corrected. It is dismal. It is corrupted. It is very pain-filled. The skies, the ethers. There is much pain. A different person incarnating here for the first time says that, oh my God, they sent me. Oh my gosh, I am in the slowest energy possible. I didn't know I was going to end up here. These people need a lot of awareness. It's slow because they don't know very much. Man, I can't believe that this is where I ended up. This is a hard place to teach anybody. They move slow, they talk slow, they doubt every word that they hear. Finally, in Book 3, a person describes how the dark energy is being changed and says that negative energy is very powerful. They are not of the light. We, I would say, are disruptive. We disrupt the negative pattern when we go in. We can go in for that negative, as you say, or chaotic energy, and straighten, move it and change it. In 1972, Jane Roberts wrote a book entitled Seth Speaks, The Eternal Validity of the Soul. In this book, Jane allows Seth to speak through her during twice-weekly trance sessions. This is exactly what my father used to do when I was growing up. In the book, Seth refers to the notion of both light and dark and says that early man could see only the destruction. Some intuitively understood that any effects are creative, despite their appearances, but few could convince their fellow men. The light and darkness contrast presents us with the same kind of picture. The good was seen as light, for men felt safer in the day. The evil was therefore assigned to nightfall. Within the mass of distortions, however, hidden beneath the dogma there was always a hint of the basic creativity of every effect. The symbolism of ascent or descent, or of light and dark, would be meaningless to their realities with different perceptive mechanisms. In the Convoluted Universe Book 4, Dolores Cannon regresses some more people that realize that they are here now upon Earth for a specific reason and the lessons that Earth provides. One person says that relationships are one thing, thought processes and staying clear of negativity. Everybody has to go through lessons. I guess I didn't get it right last time. This same person comments on humans upon the Earth and says that, oh, God, they are negative. They are so negative. This is a judgment. Black, white, right, wrong, yes, no. There are many other ways of being. We're all supposed to work together to lighten, change the way the vibrations are on the planet to bring the full integration of the human mechanism to the way it's supposed to be, the way it has been before. I suspect the way it is everywhere else other than that planet, Earth. Later into the book, another person says that yes, I come and go. I've been part of the making of the darkness of the Earth, and I'm part of the lifting of the darkness. A different person describes Earth in the following way and says that Earth is a good place to go. The biggest thing we have to do on Earth is to overcome fear, and if I don't then I will have to come back. If I do overcome it, then I won't have to come back unless I want to. However, I don't want to go back there again. I don't understand why everything has to be so horrible on the Earth. Just cruelty. That's just what it is. The Earth is that way. People are that way. I didn't have any idea how bad the band was going to be. Another person describes how hard it is to be here and says that when I went into that life I wanted to bring light into darkness. That place was so dark. It was all too hard to do. It's just not safe. My heart keeps getting hurt every time I come to this Earth. Another person was asked by Cannon what the purpose was of coming here at this time, and they said so that the Earth can bring forth a higher level in its evolvement and eliminate the heavier, darker, denser, less light bodies or energies, whatever you want to call them, the essences that are holding the planet back. A different person says the following: that the Earth is a very negative place. Not always, it doesn't have to be. But it's harder to stay in the positive, especially for the very, I don't want to use the word powerful, but for the ones who are sensitive. We have to consciously reach for the stream of light, for the one of love, because here on Earth, the automatic one is fear. Interestingly, another person in trance says that all the young ones are much more different than the old ones. People, the old ones unfortunately, are the ones that are still in positions that are damaging not only for the Earth, but for the souls of people. Finally, Towards the end of the book, one person gives us an update on the current scenario and says that it's much more than all kinds of pollutions and thoughts and things like that. It's much more of a disturbance. These disturbances were in place for a very long time to keep things at a certain frequency so people could learn things. But those things are being lifted away and the light is literally dissolving the thickness and pollution and congestion and negativity. In Eric Klein's book entitled The Crystal Stair, A Guide to the Ascension, he channeled messages from the Ascended Masters. One named Sananda described the current battle between the dark and light forces and said that if you are inhabiting the planet Earth, know that you are here at this time for a purpose. You are light workers and you have been awaiting this time. You have done a lot. You have been rather successful individually. Yet collectively I would say the change that was intended for this planet has not been proceeding as smoothly or as rapidly as we had hoped when this choice was made by you to incarnate here. So the original plan requires a little bit of a boost at this time. What has happened is that most of the starseeds have fallen asleep themselves. There is an aura of sleep and confusion which surrounds the planet. The light has not broken through fully yet, but it is making great strides to do so. Further into the book, another Ascended Master named Ashtar comments on the current plight and says that those who are here in the guise of human beings but who are truly the Dark Lords and those other types of emanations will be dealt with summarily. There are many beings upon this world who do not belong on this world, and who have created chaos from the moment they set foot upon this planet, who have enslaved other beings, the more innocent mass of humanity, with their various powers and power plays and desires for dominion. Some are fallen angels. All are existing and will be dealt with. The powers and dark presences will be given opportunities to change their ways, but those who do not will most likely be disintegrated and be restructured. It is possible for a soul to die. Later in the book, Archangel Michael describes life upon the earth and says that you will be challenged. It is one of the manifestations of the fallen brotherhood, the dark forces which cause separation and the dissemination of imperfect spiritual teachings. You are each being tested in your faith, in your devotion and in your clarity. This is not an easy path. Sananda goes on to say that because of the density and negativity of the earth plane you have all been, to some extent, victimized by the negative effects of the lack of love. Ashtar completes his words when asked if there is anything that the dark forces can do to stop the better times upon earth that are awaiting us, and says that if you were to fall under the sway of false teachings or doubt or fear, all of the chaos that is present here on this world, in effect you would be allowing the dark forces to affect you personally and your particular readiness for the ascension. They are attempting at best they can to keep humanity in a state of confusion and fear. If you do not indulge in it, I would say the dark forces will not be able to harm you. They are not fully aware of their own limitations. As you know, you are here as light bearers, having incarnated upon this planet in distress in order that you might assist in the planetary evolution. It was hoped that with sufficient numbers of light workers embodying upon planet Earth, as much as the darkness had spread and fallen energies had taken control, that the light that you brought, and the light that we have assisted in focusing, would have been sufficient to restore Earth to her evolutionary cycle in a gradual and gentle way. Much has been done, and yet, as you have all witnessed, it's not complete yet, is it? The end result of this entire process will be a beautiful shift in the energies of this world. All darkness, all unharmonious beings will be removed to places where they can be given more time to learn from that expression. The earth and those upon the earth who have grown tired of limitation and separation from spirit are now taking matters into their own hands. With our assistance, and by the grace of the Creator, the darkness is being dispelled. This dispelling takes on many forms. There is nothing to fear for those who are giving themselves to light and love. In 1992, Barbara McChinniack wrote a book entitled Bringers of the Dawn, Teachings from the Pleiadians. In this excellent book she channeled information from the Pleiadians, a group of enlightened beings that were trying to help humans reach a new stage of evolution. Their words included the following wisdom: "You are magnificent beings, members of the family of light, and you came to Earth at this time on assignment to create a shift, to make a change, to assist in the transition. Love is the key. Energy can take all forms of creativity, but when one is dealing with greed or hatred or any emotion that is not working towards light, one is only allowed to go so far. It takes renegades like the family of light to come into a system that has been primarily dark for eons and change it. It is a vast plan that you are participating in. All of you jumped at the chance to be here in such a challenging place at such a challenging time. Light is information, ignorance is darkness. We want you to be working in the light, not in the dark. Earth is a free will zone." The book goes on to say that have you ever wondered who owns Earth? It's a prime chunk of real estate. Skirmishes took place and Earth became a place of duality. When this skirmish occurred, a certain group of entities fought in space and won the territory of Earth. These new owners did not want the native Earth species, the humans, to be informed of what took place. Uninformed, the species would be easier to control. These entities beat out light, and Earth became their territory. In Prime Creator's universe, all things are allowed. Because all things are allowed, many lessons are learned. Be kind when you speak of the forces of darkness. Do not speak as if they are bad, simply understand that they are uninformed, and they create systems that are uninformed because that is how they believe they must operate. They fought at one time and separated themselves from knowledge, so now they desperately hold on to their existing knowledge and onto life as they have evolved it into being. It is life based on fear, life that does not honor other life, life that uses other life. There have been incredible wars upon this planet. During the most recent wave of the wars, about 10-12,000 years ago, Earth was sealed off because those beings that operated with light lost the battle. Light does not always win, you know. As the frequency of fear begins to diminish upon this planet, many activities will be promulgated to bring about an increase in fear because those that live off the fearful frequency will be losing their nourishment, their food. They will make an attempt to reinstate that frequency before they change their nourishment to the new frequency of love. All you need to do is discern whether something is light and you are being given information or whether it is darkness and you are being disinformed, misinformed, or information is being completely withheld from you. Darkness and light have come from the same Creator, Prime Creator. You are not like the masses on Earth, for you are members of the family of light and you know things that others do not. The nature of existence on Earth has been a struggle between light and darkness for many eons. Some would call it a struggle between good and bad, or upliftment and evil. We will simply say that it is an event and place where certain laws and rules exist, and that Earth is certainly not the only place in existence that deals with these kinds of challenges. So-called evil serves a great purpose. You judge it because it seems bad. This good and evil thing is something that can entrap you if you do not get beyond it. You have been controlled like sheep in pen by those who think they own you. From the government to the world management team to those in space, you have been deprived of knowledge by frequency control. As systems busters and potential keepers of frequency, you will obviously go into the areas where your specialities are most needed. Many of the beings who have incarnated as members of the family of light came to the United States because this is the land where you can make the most progress. This also happens to be the land where denial is pervasive. You believe that you live in the land of the free and the home of the brave, yet you live in the most controlled experimental society on the planet. The tyranny that has been set up here is rather interesting, because it is a tyranny without walls. As a country and a collective consciousness, the United States still has not reached an awareness that something is not right. The environment of the United States is actually much more controlled than that of the former Soviet Union. The system is corrupt, it does not work, it does not honor life, and it does not honor Earth. When the entities of other families that you have come to call dark took over this planet, they did a very good job of keeping the light out. The dark team did a very good job of keeping light out for a long time. However, the time is up. You destroy systems where the dark team and ignorance prevail. Light goes in to destroy all systems. There are millions of members of the family of light here, of course, and light is returning to this planet where the dark T-shirts were in charge for a very long time. The dark T-shirts have fed off your emotions of fear and negativity and war and greed, because this is a free will universe. All of this has been allowed. Prime Creator is the dark team as well as the family of light. Prime Creator is all things. N2000, Violet Stare channeled Ascended Master Dwal Kul in a book entitled The Diamond Light. In the book, the Ascended Master gave the following wisdom and said that World War II was a major turning point in the spiritual evolution of the Earth, because it was during this time frame that many laggard souls passed the third initiation of consciousness, and the planetary battle between the forces of light and dark was decisively won by the forces of light. In the time frame of 1946, the vast majority of advanced human souls made their decision to return to reclaim the planet and inaugurate a new age. The counter-forces that have ever sought to keep the souls of humanity enslaved in ignorance and fear were defeated in World War II, but they persist in trying to maintain their hold over humanity, seeking to confuse this incoming generation by distracting them from their true path to higher consciousness. Interestingly, he goes on to comment that Atlantis had an influence in promoting the darkness, and he says that all this has been made more difficult because a group of high priest scientists emerged from Atlantis, people who dedicated their beings to enslaving humanity in spiritual darkness and exploiting them for their own personal power, and we are still dealing with this situation today. These dark brothers have always employed simple techniques as a means of gaining control of the lower chakras of humanity and inciting them to acts of evil and malice, which feeds into a vast pool of negative energy created by humanity on the third subplane of the lower astral plane. This astral matter, which is a tangible energy source on the inner planes, is composed of astral atoms generated by emotions such as anger, hatred, fear and guilt. It has become a collective evil with its own intelligence. This source of evil seeks to draw more of humanity into itself, recruiting new members and using these pawns to thwart attempts of those who have a higher consciousness from doing good. The Dark Brothers are not in incarnation but have power from the astral plane over those whose consciousness is focused in the lower chakras and is primarily emotional in nature. This long period of darkness and horror has continued because this planetary school is a free will planet. The ego has developed in humanity because the vast majority of you have been raised in a spirit of false religions and lies that have given you a profound sense of isolation from the all that is. Those forces that have forever sought to enslave humanity in ignorance and despair have created the conditions that maintain the negative ego and all the ills accompanying it. These forces wishing to enslave mankind work ceaselessly to program you with ideas that promote feelings of pain, despair, judgment, envy, jealousy, malice and rage. Now is the time to see through the illusion and focus your mind on the higher mental plane. At this time there is a force of accumulated negativity on this planet that seeks to hold back progress. It is somewhat like a battle for the destiny of the planet. There are many individuals who have made themselves the unwitting tools of planetary evil. What I mean by this is that there are many people who have not consciously aligned themselves with the principles of goodness and truth, and who are mainly bent on getting whatever they want for themselves with no regard for the cost to others. These people do not feel accountable for their actions. Sylvia Browne wrote a book entitled Soul's Perfection, and in this book her spirit guide named Francine gives some invaluable words of advice and says that when we decide to incarnate, we pick our life's chart and we decide to perfect our soul, but not for ourselves. 2/3 of our existence is given over for the experiencing of God. So all you warriors for God will take on more difficult experiences in order to perfect. It became apparent to almost every soul that the only way they were going to fully understand God's knowledge was to come into life, to come into the battleground of good versus evil. All white entities come down in a white column of light. All dark entities come down in darkness. The main purpose of life is to help other people combat the darkness that confronts them. To combat darkness does not mean to do battle with it, cohabit with it, or pull it into your circle. It does mean to look at it, push it away from yourself, and try to get those you love pulled away from its sticky, gooey connivances. The world, as you must know, abounds with darkness. We have a huge challenge. People ask, but don't you want to save the dark entities as well? You cannot save the dark. God will. Maybe you can save the grey. You want to be a light in the world. The grey entities are experiencing nothing but meanness and negativity. All they're doing is feeding negative energy back into the world. In a book compiled by B. Ernest Fredger, a professor of mathematics at the University of Guelph in Guelph, Ontario, Canada, entitled The Edgar Cayce Companion, he provides a chapter of teaching about good and evil that was written by Cayce. It reads that all souls in the beginning were one with the Father. The separation or turning away brought evil. Error or separation began before there appeared what we know as the earth, the heavens, or before space was manifested. For the spirit of evil has not, did not, become manifested in matter, only it has moved by or upon or through matter. What separates spirit from its first cause, or causes good and evil? Desire. Desire. In 2006, Sylvia Browne wrote a book entitled Exploring the Levels of Creation. In a chapter entitled Dark Entities Explained Once and for All, she says that negativity is part of total knowledge, and as such, it had to come into existence at some time or other in order for created entities to learn about it and evolve. In other words, God knew that evil would be instigated by those who had free will, which means us. Normally they keep reincarnating on the planets that they use as their home base, but they also created a place in an alternate dimension for their leaders to dwell in. They call in noir, which means dark or black, and it's almost their answer to God's creation of the other side. Noir is a singular planet that doesn't have the beauty of the other side. The bulk of dark entities are somewhat primitive in nature. They act on their base emotions of lust, power, corruption, cruelty and the like in creating as much turmoil as they can. They've essentially devolved into chaotic entities that put forth negativity and evil in their actions to conquer God and His creations. Most dark entities can be easily discerned, for they only live for themselves. In some instances they can be hard to recognize. They hide themselves behind a smokescreen, usually in a religious or political arena, and put themselves forward as leaders or individuals of great wisdom. The dark ones can physically hurt you when you're incarnate, such as through spousal or child abuse. However, the dark entity's forte is to psychically attack you in your emotions. In this chapter of her book, Her spirit guide named Francine also gives some insight into the dark entities that are here upon the earth, and says that in God's mind, when his thought forms became flesh to experience for him, each one made its decision to be dark or white at that exact moment. We do see entities turning either dark or light and never going back, yet some couldn't decide, so we called them the grey entities. Being grey lets them sit on both sides of the fence. They get to be a little bad and a little good. We generally lump them in with the dark ones. At least with dark entities, you're very aware, almost from first contact, that they are evil. With the dark ones you almost have to admire their dedication because they are totally committed to themselves. You never know exactly where you stand with the greys because they don't know where they stand, so they are the most frightening. The unfortunate part about this is that far more greys turn black than white. There's about 70% grey and black and 30% white upon Earth. Most entities decided that this planet was the best one to go to in order to perfect certain themes. White entities bit off more than they could chew. You see, what's so awful about this planet is that the whole place has a terrible time being charted, individually and collectively. For example, let's say that you're going to the Amazon and you got some shots to protect you from various jungle viruses. Then, once you got there, you found out that those shots will do you no good because the viruses have mutated and there's no cure. That's what Earth is like. You were told specifically when you came down here that all bets were off, since any planet with so many dark entities can't be charted. We on the other side knew that we could help you somewhat, but this is such a negative planet, and those dark souls play by their own rules. The soul chooses in the very beginning, and every wrong or evil stems from greed, jealousy or avarice. Dark entities can't wait to come into life because they get wealth, beauty, glamour and everything else that their out of control egos want. Some felt that they'd rather be top dog on the wrong side than just a small light on the right one. Yet they didn't realize that in the big picture, their little light actually would have been brighter and more powerful in the long run. A spirit guide can try to take a grey and turn it white, but the minute it turns dark, the guide leaves. Grey entities do not stay on the other side. They go to a holding place and get some interaction with the other side, but they are not allowed to reside there. When the schematic has ended, centuries and centuries from the present time, there will be no use for the dark ones. In the Starseed Dialogues by Patricia Corey, she is scribed to the speakers of the Syrian High Council, and through channeling she gives the reader the following information: that from your limited vantage point, it appears that the very nature of existence is based on the war between good and evil, and even now, as you spiral into the future, you are faced with the dualism at every juncture, in every moment of your lives. You may have resigned yourselves to the idea that there is no hope for humanity, that you have reached the point of no return, and that is a dangerous, self-defeating belief structure. It only feeds the darkness, empowering those who believe they own you to take more from you. It amplifies the darkness, catapulting you even further into despair. It takes your light, your power, your joy. You live in a world which hosts both extremely dark characters and wondrously loving, spiritual beings, but the truth is that most of humanity is somewhere in between. There have been moments of incredible radiance and impenetrable darkness throughout history, and these two extremes, you find, often exist in the same moment, occupying the same space as poles of the one energy. As students of esoteric wisdom, you are learning that you must integrate the polar aspects, the good and bad, the light and dark, the love and hate. As long as you continue to fuel these forces in opposition, there will be war on every level. It is a devastating alliance, that of the dark force, yet the light is all around you. Know that, no matter how determined others might be to draw upon your power, Darkness can only feed on darkness, and that, we remind you, is nothing more than your fear, your ignorance, and your rage. Corey later in the book describes the time of Atlantis and says that these, the darkest acts of forced submission, involved violent and public death for those whose misfortune it was to be chosen by the dark priesthood, who operated under the hypnotic influence of their Anunnaki lords. With the flow of human blood into communal temple grounds, the life force of the Atlanteans, their collective will, was drawn from their beings, while the sacred spaces suffocated under the weight of human despair and violence. The light workers of the later generation found they simply could not neutralize the intention of the insipid Dark Warriors. In Robert Shapiro's book entitled E.T.s and the Explorer Race, he channels information about the human race being an experiment upon the planet Earth and says that a race of aliens named the Zetas have been here since the beginning to watch over the experiment here upon Earth, the experiment of folding in equal batches of what you now call positivity and negativity, or what I like to call comfort and discomfort. In 1993, Wesley H. Bateman wrote Knowledge from the Stars. In this book we wrote about the forces of light and the forces of darkness. He said that eventually in one lifetime or another, the individual's basic aura color will be black. Black contains all colors and represents the highest form of material perfection. The color white, on the other hand, contains all colors but represents the highest form of spiritual perfection. Extraterrestrials do not refer to the color black as being evil, but they refer to those who deliberately practice evil as the forces of darkness. Darkness, meaning the absence of light. In the universe there exist those who desire to have the power of the Creator without following the Creator's master plan or attaining infinite thought. These individuals collectively compose the forces of darkness that encourage and conduct warfare against those who wish to live peacefully within the Creator's master plan. They are constantly devising ways to spiritually control others and psychically vampire their psychic energy. The extraterrestrials state that they can physically keep score of who is winning the battle for psychic control of the universe. The side that is presently winning, but not victorious, would be the side that has control of the most psychic energy in the form of objects such as weapons or humans dedicated to their particular cause. In his 1994 book entitled The Robots' Rebellion, David Icke writes about the forces of darkness and the light and says about the current battle that volunteers or volunteer consciousness have dedicated themselves to restore harmony and help the Earth to synchronize with the rest of the galactic and universal family. Volunteers came forward on many levels and the struggle began between light and dark, a theme seen throughout ancient texts and legends. This has been portrayed symbolically in films like both Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back. He goes on to say that the imbalances and density of the Earth affect humanity in many ways. If we lose touch with the higher self, we become dominated by the information coming in through the eyes and ears, and we are prey to the thought patterns directed at this level by the Luciferic consciousness. These work primarily on the emotions and the ego, and once the Lucifer patterns have control of those, they can, by affecting our behavior, cause untold pain and destruction. This is what has happened to the human race. If Lucifer can manipulate that information and fill the human mind with negative thought patterns, it follows that he could encourage humanity to act in ways that generate yet more negative energy into the ocean of consciousness in which we exist. More negative energy increases the power of the Luciferic consciousness. The best way to challenge the negative is with joy, laughter, peace and knowledge. The negative does not understand love and peace. In Patricia Corey's book entitled No More Secrets, No More Lies, she channels further information about the current spiritual battle and says that the material universe is bursting with life, filled with the incredible, And, as on Earth, the struggle between the dark and light forces exists in varying degrees. At every juncture, that duality is a constant of existence. We have difficulty imagining how you can live with such a sense of loneliness, yet it helps us comprehend your spiritual dilemma. It helps us understand how you have for so long been dominated, controlled and suppressed as a people. More than 100,000 years ago, marks a most significant point in the unfolding events of your galactic quadrant, when interference from highly destructive energies led the forces of light from many dimensions to become directly involved, justified by its serving as an act of consequence rather than one of intervention. Many conscious beings of the fifth and sixth dimensions retrograded back into matter, giving birth to a new wave of light workers, who would help restore the balance of darkness and light in the 3D theater. Slowly the energy shifted and the pendulum began to swing back to center. That struggle continues eternally, for such is the nature of the universe. Despite the waves of light ones who had retrograded back into physical reality, our elders realized that the balance was completely upset in your universe, that the light was dimming, and that there were far too few incarnate light workers to dramatically alter the vibrational pattern that was forming in three-dimensional space and re-establish the balance. It appeared that, without divine assistance, the realm you know as the universe would sink into abysmal darkness and finally reach extinction. It is important to remember that the dark forces, those that hover in the ethers and those that walk the ground of Gaia, Earth, are masters of frequency and they have broadband communication with Earth beings. Their essence permeates the lower astral, just as it is aired across their wires and transmitters of your global communications networks. The powers ruling Earth want to deny you all access to the story of your true origins, for they know that such empowering realizations will shake you from their clutches. They know it, and yet they are determined that, by increasing the pressure of their control mechanisms, they will be able to hold the human race in submission, so that they may continue to use you as their servants and slaves, their most valuable resource. Why? The answer should be obvious. It is because you produce incredible wealth for them, you serve as their brute force, you destroy, kill and die for them, you feed their ego centers, you give them great power over you, stimulating their killer instincts. You provide them with possibilities for their own survival that, without you, would never exist. By holding humankind in absolute survival mode, they are assured that you function in full capacity as their technicians, warriors and slaves. By stimulating your sexual libido and physical desire, they can entrap you in predictable behavior modes and steer you into darker corners of human emotion. So clever are the dark forces at manipulating your fear and survival instincts that they can deceive the majority at the conceptual level. They are expert stage hands, building scene after scene in the minds of the unsuspecting, who, in turn, become disempowered at the very idea of dark icons moving about in the material world and hovering in the ethers. To the world of music, cinema, television and the new electronic realities, they bring overt and subliminal messages of the evil paradigm in every form. Global news fills you with the horrifying and the grotesquely sensational, and always the demons of human cruelty and cult-like fanaticism fuel your misperceptions of a world leaning to the dark side. The societal antidote, religion, carves out a way to salvation through the imposition of obedience, adherence to the dogma, and the threat of God's impending punishment to those who stray from the conventional doctrines of the Church. Know that leaders of all religious empires, like all political figureheads, set the direction of their spiritual teachings according to the power's mandates, for they too must follow the directives of the secret government. Great numbers of you are now seeing through the smokescreen, and that is a most positive aspect of this difficult time in your social evolution. and so we ask you to give great consideration and due contemplation to how the dark forces, in a very important sense, serving you, for their tightening of the reins only stirs your desire and determination to run forever free towards the light. Finally, Robert Shapiro writes in his book entitled The Explorer Race, that it has been necessary then to create a planet on which there was a mixture of positivity and negativity so that the so-called negativity could accentuate the positive and the so-called positivity could influence the negative, a blending, as it were, of so-called polarities. Polarity has been necessary to create stress and so on, so that you would have challenges, opportunities, disappointments, rewards, etc. Negative energy is polarity, that is all it really is. It is a choice, it is an option, that is its true nature. The Creator could immediately see the value of it, yet when that choice and option and polarity are given, the extreme will take place. That is what you are doing now. You are resolving, literally, the difficulties with negative energy, which is sometimes called Satan or the devil. Shapiro goes on to comment on the shadow government and says that you feel, in a sense, as if they were the enforcement arm of the Illuminati. I will trace them to the Illuminati, because the Illuminati, in its highest aspect, is the spiritual aspect that has a certain spiritual philosophy. The shadow government, though not all its elements, would be of the Illuminati and would necessarily use some of the practices and give lip service to it, if not actual education. He goes on to write about spirituality and says that one would say that if you are going to practice a spirituality that revolves around control and predictability to improve mankind's condition, you are necessarily going to have a challenge that would seek to create discomfort for mankind. So inadvertently, because of the need to challenge, the White Brotherhood accidentally created the dark side of spirituality simply to give the light side something to rise above and vanquish. In a sense, the Dark Knight was created so the White Knight could reign with all true power and forces of light energy. If you are going to have total equality in ideas, it is necessary to have a so-called dark side. The force of evil, as it is now in its current exhibition upon Earth, could be loosely referred to as Satan, essentially an extension of the Lucifer personality. Lucifer now has a light side and a dark side.